Warning. Watch out for the shadows. They move when you are not looking at them. This month's Where Did the Road Go is sponsored by the following awesome individuals. Greg Ross, Allison Cook, Super Inframan, 36 Dingo, and Michael Friske. Thank you so much for helping make this show possible.
Transmission start. Welcome to Where Did the Road Go? Join us as we wander off the path and explore lost history, consciousness, the paranormal, unexplained mysteries, alternative thought, and much more. We are present on the web at wheredidtheroadgo.com. Now here is your host, Seriah.
Welcome to this edition of Where Did the Road Go? And tonight I have joining me Adrienne. Hello there.
Hey.
And Tim Renner sent you my way, very excitedly. He could not stop talking about you when I saw him. And he's like, you need to talk to her. You're so much crossover. And I listened to the episode you did of his. Do you remember what number that is of Strange Familiars?
I think it's 553.
Okay. I don't remember what the name of it is off the top of my head either, but
the gates of hell lead to Bigfoot.
That's right, because it was the 7 gates thing that made you contact him.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Exactly.
All right, and you're up in Maine.
I am in Maine.
And so you've been a lifelong experiencer.
Starting when I was, so I was just about to say starting when I was a toddler. And then I was going to say as early as I have memories, but I mean, what does that even mean? I remember being born, and I know we're not supposed to, but I don't remember being born from being inside my body. I was up in the corner of the room watching it.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. I don't remember in utero. So the earliest I remember is being outside of my body in the room being born. And I have some anecdotal proof because there are details about the hospital room and where people were and what was happening that aren't told in my birth story that I shouldn't know, that I knew the whole time.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I have trouble remembering probably before I was like 20.
I have a lot of blocks. I have some memory blocks. I had a pretty, traumatic childhood and adolescence. So there's stuff that I have blocked out, but I have some very vivid memories as well.
Yeah, I didn't so much block stuff out. I had an experience that kind of Swiss cheesed my memory.
Okay.
So everything before that kind of got hard to focus on. Every once in a while, something will come back to me, and I'll be like, when I was working on my book, I had taken notes from 1990 on, I think, but anything before that was lost to me. And I was like, I remembered bits and pieces. And as I was going through, for instance, I used to play trombone in elementary school, and I didn't think I really did anything with it. And as I'm going through my mom's paperwork and stuff, everything she saved, I'm finding these programs where I played trombone on a stage. There's pictures of me doing this, and I'm going, I don't remember this at all. Like, it's not even triggering like a false memory. I got nothing.
Oh, wow.
So that was kind of like a interesting thing to see. It's like, there I am, but that's not there anymore.
So my memory does like to do dissociative things, but since I've realized that as an adult, and we have cameras in our phones, I tend to photo document my life.
Yeah.
And I tend to look back on things to keep myself refreshed with the filing cabinet where everything is stored in my brain. So it's like I have a feeling map for things, which is part of my sort of mystical spiritual experiences. And then I have a photo map so I can remember the time-space reality.
Yeah. I will take photos of things on the regular for that very reason. I also still keep notes. But you have kind of the mix of things that people find in lifelong experiencers. So you had trauma in your childhood.
So much excessive and continued into adulthood. I finally
awesome.
Broke those patterns. That's normal. Mental health stuff. You know what I mean? That's normal for that to take a long time.
You live a liminal life, which is a very big part of this. Where you're anti-structural.
Yeah, that's hard for me to be. I mean, I've gone through small periods of time where I've had more structure, but I've been a self-employed artist for 15 years, and I thrive in an environment where I'm in charge of me.
And you're an artist.
Mm-hmm.
So those are 3 of the big check marks of people with lifelong experiences.
I've moved like 40 times too. I'm dramatic as well.
Well, that's part of the liminality right there.
Mm-hmm.
So as I was listening to you on Tim's show, I'm like, oh, you're checking off all the boxes.
Yeah.
Like none of this is surprising.
Yeah, that makes sense. And there's so much that like I didn't touch on, even though I talked to him for 2 full episodes.
Right.
You know, like I see energy. I mean, I guess that's what I've called it my whole life. It's probably like electromagnetic energy, I think. But I see energy 100% of the time. And I thought that was an everybody thing until I was 18. I didn't know.
Is that like aura or different?
I don't know. I don't use that word. You know what I mean? I don't know. So I see light, like energy that comes off of people's head and shoulders. It comes off of everyone, but it's strong on the head and shoulders. And you see this in religious paintings. Like some people, it's very strong, you know? And it's funny though. Okay, so I had a lesson in my early 20s. I was working for a collection agency. It's actually one of my best favorite jobs I've ever had, to be honest. Commercial collections, best dead-end job I've ever had. It was wonderful. But we had these yearly meetings with the big boss, and he wasn't like a highly spiritual person. He was definitely like a highly like financially motivated person. And he was very into material stuff and I'm just trying to use the kindest words possible. You know what I mean? Trying to like describe what he's about. And he loved us. We made him a lot of money. But he's giving us this presentation and his light is so big that it's like 8 times as big as him. And I've never seen, it's so big. Like something you would expect on the Dalai Lama or whatever, you know, and I was so confused and it took me a while to process it. And it's like, not everybody that's powerful is using it to help everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, doesn't mean everyone's using it for good. So I see it on inanimate objects too, sometimes stronger than others. And it's just about the energy that it carries. Almost all living things have it. I talk to other people who see exactly what I see. And they agree with the next statement that I'm going to make. And I'm not saying it to dehumanize anybody because that's not the lens that I ever look at it through. But some people don't have it. And I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. They're perfectly fine people. They don't come off to me as evil. It's not like, I'm not like, oh, they're soulless. Nope. It's not like that. They don't necessarily all seem depressed or anything. Maybe they're just not awake. I don't know. That sounds superior as well. And that's not. I don't try to look at things and, you know, from a hierarchical lens like that. I don't know. I don't know what it means. Well, but it's some people.
I don't see energy, but I will pick information up from people sometimes. I actually try to turn that off as much as possible because I get way too much information.
Yeah.
But sometimes when I'm meeting somebody, I will let that come through a little so I can get a little, you know, like as opposed to walking past someone in the supermarket, you know. Meeting someone for the first time, being like, okay, I want to know what this person's about. And I'll kind of like allow some of that to come through. And sometimes there's nothing and they could be absolutely awesome people. And I think it's frequency. I think it's like a resonance where some people you just don't resonate with.
That makes sense. Yeah. I subscribe to Rupert Sheldrake's like hypothesis on breath. I love it. I love
the morphic field theory
with that lens. And it makes a lot of sense for me. So I just use it. So that makes sense.
Again, that's, you know, and sometimes they have been kind of crappy people, but I don't think that really makes any difference whatsoever. I think it's just, there have been people, you and Tim talked about it, I think on the Patreon segment, where you just feel like you've known them.
Yeah.
And that has happened. That happened with me with Tim. I mean, the first time I went down to Alba Twitch and I met Tim and his wife, Allison, I felt like they were old friends. And apparently Allison said that to Tim after I left.
That's awesome. So sometimes when that happens, I know where I know him from, you know, sometimes I'm like, oh, that past life, that makes sense, you know, and sometimes I don't know right away. Like a friend that I made when I was in Pennsylvania, it was hard for me to connect with people there, you know, probably just cultural, you know, regional thing. But I did connect with this one friend, and it wasn't until recently, so a few years later, that we realized that this past life we remember having in a castle was together. I don't know if that means my soul and her soul a long time ago lived those lives together. Maybe it was our ancestors and we carry their DNA memories. I don't really know what it is, but we're both connecting to a life that we had shared together as servants in a castle in Europe in the late 1100s, which is crazy.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And once we figured it out, I started having these incredible flashes of memory about it.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that.
And that's happened a few other times, but that's that's the most recent and the most like poignant memory regarding that. Sometimes, sometimes people are just familiar, and you don't know why, and they just feel like home, and maybe that's just a morphic resonance thing too.
It could be. I mean, it feels like sometimes you're catching up with an old friend, but you've never met them before.
Yeah. So the way that a lot of my sort of like psychic antenna works is sometimes when I meet someone and they're familiar, I try to figure out, are you familiar because I'm remembering you from the past, or are you familiar because I'm remembering you from the future? So it's like, are you familiar because we're supposed to do this?
Right.
I feel like you can remember from the future as well. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And stuff can move backwards in time as well. I mean, time's kind of our own construct so that we can make sense of reality.
Yeah, the human brain just interprets it at a specific pace, or it's supposed to anyway.
Yeah. In the Seth material, Seth says, time moves as fast as your brain can process reality. And I thought about that, and I went, well, no wonder time flies when you're busy. And no wonder it crawls when you're not doing anything and just waiting.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's so interesting that like when we're measuring it with devices that would only process it at the one speed because they don't have emotions attached to it.
Right.
It still follows that same logic,
I mean, what do you feel that we have free will?
Whew, I think about this a lot and I go back and forth on it. How do I feel about it today? Okay. So this is a dangerous, like a really dangerous conversation to have with people who want to do bad things, right? Because it's really dangerous to be like, no, we don't have free will, because then like, that's not excusing people of their behavior, right? It's like, I always feel like, trepidatious or whatever talking about
Understandable.
this. I've been through a lot, and I've had a lot of people say things to me like, wow, I can't believe you didn't give up. And to me, I don't know what that means. Like, do you want me to just crawl into a hole and myself? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what does that mean? And I think they mean like, well, you didn't end up on the street. You didn't end up doing bad things, to better your situation. You didn't end up on hard drugs. You didn't end up, a number of things. You didn't try to end it. Like, so I think that's what they mean, right? I didn't do those things. And of course I didn't. But at the same time, for me, it didn't feel like there was an option.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like I had it never feels like I have any other choice but to do what I'm going to do. So for me, it felt like, do I have free will? Yeah. Like that's been the way that I've looked at it, because it doesn't feel like I could have made a different choice. Like I had to do that. I don't know how other people feel about it, but that's kind of how I've looked at it. And then I sort of look at it as like algorithms, right? So I look at it as like, am I just a product of my genetics, all my genetics, which are like the product of, the actions and experiences and genetics of all of my ancestors, right? Am I just like hardware versus software? Am I just a product of that versus the experiences that I've had and algorithmic, mathematical? Am I programmed to do what I would do because of all those experiences? So do I have free will? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
that's
I look at it through those. But then, so I have a friend who's a Hindu monk, and he helps me a lot. I'm not Hindu, but I like looking at things in lots of different ways. And I do really like Eastern philosophy and religion.
Me too.
And he doesn't believe in, I asked him about it. He was like, of course you don't have free will. That's ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I like his matter of fact. He's a monk. He has very strong beliefs. That's why I seek wisdom with him,
Yeah.
And then, I talked to my therapist she has her PhD. She's a doctor, she has no idea. She doesn't know.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't know. It depends on what lens you want to look at it through. How do you feel about that?
I feel like there's two analogies that make sense to me. One is the book analogy, where we don't have free will, but all the information's already there. You could skip ahead pages if you want, but it won't make a lot of sense till you get there.
Okay.
But the whole book you can hold in your hand.
Okay.
So it's already written. It's right there. The other analogy is a video game where all the code is already written, but there's a lot of choices you can make. And if it's a story-based game where where they have an ending for you, you can make choices within the game, and the path through that game can get easier or harder based on those choices. But
my current belief system is the video game for sure. But I'm are you familiar with Donald Hoffman and the evolutionary game theory?
I know the name. I don't remember the theory.
Ooh, you'd love his stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. It's similar to simulation, but not really. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not exactly there. We're still it's about, he talks about, I would be a conscious agent, but together we're all also a conscious agent together,
Yeah.
So I'm a conscious agent and I'm putting on a headset, and that headset is like the portals of our senses that allow us to look into this time-space reality that we all agree on and exist in. And he talks about how our perceptions, like our senses, aren't showing us reality. They're just showing us what we need in order to survive and move forward.
Yes.
And so he's talking about it that way. And he's talking about how it's a game, it's game theory for him, but it works with evolution. It doesn't deny evolution. And he talks about how, and I love it. And he's got the scientific theory to back it. He's got the math. They all have the math. I get that, But when I studied his theory, it just lined up so well with my experiences. And then I wish I remember this man's name, but he wrote a book called My Big Toe. Do you know who I'm talking about?
And I don't remember his name because the toe stands for theory of everything. I was literally thinking about this book a couple days ago.
Yeah, he's wonderful. So it's so funny whenever I hear like part of it, I didn't like part of what he had to say because it removed my emotional attachment to some of my experiences. And I'm not discounting, I'm not saying that I fully wholeheartedly believe in what he says, but I'm open to it, but I definitely had an emotional rejection of it the first time I heard him talk about it on his podcast. And he talks about how he doesn't believe in ghosts. He thinks that when you die, you die. But he thinks that the data is still there. So he thinks that mediums are just receiving data.
Right. Thomas Campbell.
That's his name.
Yes.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. I mean,
so he talked about that as it's like not really your mom. And like, I don't want to hear that.
Right.
I want it to be my mom. So I understand that I had that emotional reaction, but then I was like, but that still could, but it's all just data.
Yes.
So like that's just the lens that he looks at it through. But I feel like to answer your question, my belief system is a combination of Thomas Campbell's data, which I'll explain how that fits in with your video game thing, right? And then also like Donald Hoffman's evolutionary game theory. And so what Thomas Campbell talks about with it being data is he says, yeah, like the future's not set in stone, but like it's what's out there, it's a game of probabilities. So like psychics can predict things and like they're usually right. It's about how probable it is. So I do think it's a game of probabilities. And I feel like we can see the future. And I feel like my take on the multiverse theory is that they're probabilities.
Yeah. Yes.
We're humans and we're trying to put these boxes and words around things to understand them. These are the best words we can come up with to describe these concepts. It's something like that, So that's what I think. But at the same time, as the conscious entity, am I making decisions purely based on the algorithms of my experiences?
Yeah.
Where does do you know what I mean? Where am I actually in charge?
Right.
How would I ever even figure that out?
I mean, that was the end of one of the seasons of Westworld.
Oh, I lost access to that. And now you have to pay for every episode.
Really?
I lost access to that before I could finish it. I really liked that show.
Yeah, one of the, and I've mentioned this again recently because we were talking about this type of stuff, but one of the characters who's a android or whatever is saying that she has her own thoughts, she's thinking for herself, and the guy with the computer screen just turns it around and everything she's saying is appearing there right before she says it.
Yeah. Well, and you heard what I talked about on that second episode with Tim, where I watched time skip over itself.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to describe that for people? Because that's interesting.
What's that?
You want to describe that for people?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And oh, man, it was wild. So I was 19 and this was probably like the most active time in my life. My dad said the same for him, 1920, and my kid said the same for her. So I think it has to do with your hardware, like your hormones, your physical hardware.
Yeah.
And so I think the antenna is just the most loud there naturally. And I'm working at this health food store and things are wild for me. And I'm having a lot of deja vus. And nothing in this world is binary. And so it's not like you either don't have a deja vu or you do. They happen on a spectrum. And all the way from like a little sparkle feeling and a little, wow, that was familiar, all the way to the other end where you're like, I've had this dream 4,000 times. It's that familiar. Like this is happening forever, where you literally can't stay inside your body anymore. It's so familiar. So they started out mild and they started out short-lived. And then the space in between when I was having them would be fairly long. And over a period of 9 months, I would have more of them. And the space in between would slowly get shorter. And each, deja vu experience itself would get longer and stronger. until eventually every moment of every single day, it was really fun, but hard to be a person. I lost my job during this time. Every moment of every single day was the strongest deja vu I've ever felt in my entire life. And when that happens, you're high 100% of the time. Like I had taken a ton of psychedelics. And, but I hadn't, I was sober. I was very sober. I couldn't handle anything at the time. And so when I got to that point, time started folding over on itself. And so it was like, in Eastern, practices, like in, Hinduism, they talk about the Purusha. The Purusha is the observer. And, like the higher self that is like watching you think your thoughts, basically. And so it almost felt like it was the Purusha observing what was going to happen 45 seconds to a minute and a half before I experienced it. And it was like I was seeing it, like overlapping reality, but it wasn't like I was seeing both at the same time, but one was in my mind's eye and one was actually in front of me, but I could see them both simultaneously. When that starts to happen, even though you're only seeing the future like a minute in front of you and only what's right in front of you, not other places in the world, it feels so surreal on top of the fact that your body's obviously flooding you with some type of chemicals to make you feel a certain way. But it also feels really surreal. Like, why do I get to see this? And so I would create witnesses by roping other people in with me. There's this girl, Michelle, that would work with me, and I'd be like, all right, Michelle, so DJ is going to come around the corner with a wooden spoon in his hand, and he's going to twirl it in the air like it's a magic wand. He's going to point it over there. And when he does, the bird's going to fly from the rafter. And then a pickle jar is going to fly, fall in aisle 10. We're going to hear it and smell it. The phone's going to ring. And I would start to say it, and it would start to happen as I'm saying it, but I'm staying ahead of it the entire time. And her eyes are getting bigger and her jaw is dropping. And neither of us understand why I can do this. And she's like paranoid, and she's like, don't show anybody this. They're going to lock you up. Like, I don't know. It was 20 years ago. Like, maybe they would have. Who knows? I feel like they'd study it in a safer way now,
Well, they just wouldn't believe you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, maybe they locked me up because they don't believe me, of course, But it was amazing. And so, yeah, how did we get on that subject? Refresh me. Why am I telling this story?
Because we were talking about free will and the way we perceive reality, and then we were talking about time, and then I wanted you to relate that story for anyone who hasn't heard you on Tim's show.
Yeah. So, but that's related to the free will thing. So I don't know. It was only a minute and a half into the future, but like if I was like, oh, time's not real. I mean, obviously time is real. Time isn't what we think it is. But I was a teenager. My mind was blown. And I was like, time isn't what we think it is. And I just watched the future unroll like over and over again in front of me. Like, if it's already set, like, what does this mean? Like, so I don't know. I don't know.
It doesn't mean it's already set, but that the probabilities are for a minute or so, already set.
Right. Of course. That's super short term. But that was another factor of data in me trying to process like this free will thing. And, I've listened to a lot of people discuss it recently. It's been coming up a lot. It's definitely something that interests me, and different arguments sway me a little more to one side or the other side all the time.
And I would also want to add that 19, 20 years old is another liminal point in your life. So it makes sense that things would uptick around then.
What do you mean by a liminal point in my life?
Because you're going from being a teenager to an adult.
Oh, I see what you're saying. It's a doorway.
Yeah. So it's that liminality in between spot. You're not, you're no longer a teenager or a child, but you're also not an adult yet. The same with like puberty, where you're going from being a small child to a teenager, is another hot spot for activity. And part of it's probably...
That's why me living a liminal lifestyle means that I'm always there. And yes. I do. I have one foot straddled in the time-space reality and one foot straddled in this other space.
Right. And the less structure you have in your life, the more likely you are to have these type of experiences. And I don't know. I mean, George Hansen's one of the people who wrote about this initially in his book, Trickster and the Paranormal. And I think when I said to him, well, I think it's because when you have an anti-structural life, you're paying attention to different things. I think he said that wasn't actually the case, but I can't, because that was like 10 years ago.
I mean, I can tell you what I think it is.
What?
From my speculation, we're listening to our body's rhythms when we don't have structure. We're doing what feels right in the moment. I eat when I'm hungry. I sleep when I'm tired. I do what I'm called to. Like, I was taking pictures of lichen today, and I remembered how much I loved lichen when I was younger. So then I looked up the symbolism of lichen, and I was like, oh, that's what I've been studying for the past 3 months. That makes sense that I'd be thinking about that now. That's how I live my life. And so if you're
what's the symbols for lichen?
Oh, it's really cool. It's about the interconnectedness of everything in nature, and like how we're supposed to be in symbiotic relationships, reciprocity, like how we need each other to survive.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've been, for the past 6 months or so, I've just been really studying like where we went wrong, like Paleolithic man, and like how we used to survive and how we used to live like more with nature. I know we had other problems. I understand that.
Right.
Not an argument for the evening, but like, I'm just saying, like, that's what I've been looking at. And, so I'm just saying all this to say that like the way that I live liminally and not on other people's structures is just by listening and riding the wave and going with the flow and paying attention. And so that makes sense that type of lifestyle would have you seeing more stuff.
That is interesting. I had not thought of that. Because like I said, my knee-jerk reaction was, well, if you're doing the same thing every day, you kind of go into zombie mode. You're not noticing things.
Yeah.
Because it's just the same thing every day. One day turns into the next. You're not, And some people need that. Some people need that structure. I know numerous people who could not live an unstructured life. It would drive them insane. But it's the same type of stuff that does drive me insane, is any kind of being forced into any kind of structure.
I haven't worked in 2 months and I've never felt better. I've been very productive, don't get me wrong, but I stopped working for other people 2 months ago, just circumstantially. And I was like, oh, I forgot. I love this. Yeah. Yep.
So what would you say were some of your strangest experiences?
I mean, I get the Bigfoot thing to me personally.
Okay, well, you want to tell that one?
Because all of my other stuff was so normal. Like, because that was my normal. So, like, I don't know. Maybe the flying dream school thing, I guess, but that was in Dream World. I saw actual Bigfoot, which sounds so outlandish to me. That's crazy.
Go ahead and tell that story, because for anyone who hasn't heard it, because it's not just a Bigfoot you saw.
No. Okay. So I was 16. And I was with a bunch of friends, and people were just getting their licenses and cars and stuff. And I had moved to that area. So I was the new kid, small town, not a lot of people. And there was a local legendy type thing there called the Glowing House. And so it was time to take the new kid to the Glowing House. We were having a sleepover. I think we were unsupervised. We were going to stay out late. There's another local legendy thing in that area called the Gates of Hell. And it's at a state park, at a very, very old little, like, tiny cemetery with very thin gravestones where you can barely read what's on them anymore, some sort of protected property. Wow. And there's a little wrought iron gate along the stone wall, and it's got loose chains and a lock on it. And, you're not supposed to walk in there, but we do. Everybody does. Right. It's just the local legend spot. And they say gates plural, but it's just this one little gate. And you're supposed to walk through it during the minute of midnight. And then all hell is supposed to break loose. I'm not somebody who's super into, I live a spooky life, but I don't go out searching for it typically. I'm not trying to find it. I don't need to. It just happens. So this was a little out of my norm, but I'm a teenager. I'm having fun with my friends. So we go do this. It's a car full of maybe 4 or 5 of us, and all of us get through that little gate. We hop over it in that minute and we scare ourselves. And then, we scramble back to the car, and we're going to drive 2 towns away to see the Glowing House. We're driving through Amesbury to the town in between, and we're at it's the middle of the night. There's usually no cars out because it's sleepy small town. And we're at an intersection. And the last time I told this story, I actually misremembered this part a little bit. And I consulted with my friend, and I remembered it correctly before I talked to her, but she agreed with me that, it was the second way. So I'm going to correct myself here. We're sitting at this light, and this car drives by us, and it's a Jeep Cherokee. And in retrospect, maybe there wasn't a driver in it, in the driver's seat, because it was like, maybe it was being used as a mail vehicle or something. Totally possible that's, that the person in the passenger seat could have been driving. But we were freaked out because there wasn't somebody in the driver's seat. There was only a body in the passenger seat. And the body in the passenger seat, and I say body because once we saw the face, it didn't seem human. looking forward. And then as they're very slowly driving in front of us, perpendicular, crossing this intersection, like in a horror movie, they very slowly turn their face toward us. And when they did, they were like sheet white, like a piece of paper, like white. And no features. There was no nose at all. And where there should have been eyes, that was just maybe a little bit sunken in, like indentations, and maybe like for the mouth, like tiny, round, like a small screen, but like indented a little bit. But no indent and no bump for a nose. It looked like maybe there was like a sock pulled over their head, except there should have been a nose. So that doesn't make sense. But it didn't look like a sock. It just looked like a no face. A no face. It looked like a no face. I don't, that's all I can really say. And we are completely freaked out. Unlikely that somebody put on some weird mask that they could sort of see through. I don't even know how that would work, but it's possible, I guess, right?
Right.
I guess.
It wasn't around Halloween, was it?
No, it was in the spring.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it was in the spring. And so we just look at each other. We didn't, just quiet. And like, we didn't even, what is that? We don't even want to address it. You know what I mean? We're like, what is even happening? This is terrifying. Especially since it happened right after we walked ourselves through the gates of hell, of course.
Right.
And, so then, we book it through the intersection. We go to see the glowing house. There is a big, huge street light that's pointed at this house, but it's in an area where there's no other lights. And there's vegetation that blocks you from seeing that once you're past it. And it's at the end of this street. And so you tell some spooky story that I can't remember about it. And as you're coming past it, and you turn, you don't tell your passenger, your victim, that that's the house. They don't know. So they're not paying attention. And then you go down the street, you tell them you're a mile past it, but I'm sure that we weren't quite that far. And you shut the car off, you shut the engine off, you shut the lights off. And then you're at the point in your story where you're like, and there it is. And you point behind you. And because the light is secretly on it and you seem very far away in the woods, it looks like it's glowing. And
right.
you've already scared them and your kids. So it's fun, And so we're at that point and we do that. And the windows are down because it's springtime. It's nice out. And we hear this rustling coming from the woods on the right side. And so, and it's pretty loud. So the driver turned the headlights on. And as soon as the headlights come on, we see what's happening. And there is a pack of deer that is running from one side of the road to the other. And there is a Bigfoot that is chasing them. And the Bigfoot is directly in front of our vehicle when we turn the lights on. She was on all fours. And she gets up on 2 feet and she's staring at us. And the lights are on her and she's 6-8 feet in front of our car, just staring at us. We're in a tiny little subcompact and we are freaking out. She took off. It was like she stopped for just a few seconds and then she took back off and chased the deer. We were again quiet. We weren't loud about our fear. We were very quiet about it, We just looked at each other and we were really confused and it just didn't fit into what was real. We tried on the way, we went home immediately. We were like, okay, that's it. We're going home. That's fine. And, when we got there, and I'm sure on the way home, we tried to reason what it could be. That like somebody knew we were going to do this. Did we tell any of our friends? Did the boys set this up? Like, did somebody in a costume? Like, how would they even have, how would that have happened? We just tried to reason it to be anything else possibly. I talked to a few other friends that I had gone to high school about it recently. My friend Stacy said, I do remember you talking about that. I just didn't remember who you were with, so some friends listened to the podcast and said that they did remember us talking about it a little bit, but we didn't talk about it that much. We just figured nobody would believe us.
Yeah.
It's so stigmatized. And it also just seemed so like I had a bunch of spiritual sort of paranormal type experiences already, but my friends hadn't. And I didn't talk about that with them back then, and it just didn't fit in. It just didn't make sense. We didn't talk about it much. Over the years, I've told stories about it every now and then. Just laugh. Haha, that one time we saw Bigfoot, and then like somebody will, what do you mean? And I'll tell the story and people look at you like you're weird after you say that. So I just didn't bring it up very much. But it happened. I called Ashley up. She was one of the friends that was there recently. And I said, did that really happen? Before I did Tim's show. And she said, it sure did. It absolutely did. I was there. That was wild. I looked it up. I haven't seen a lot of, back in the 80s, there was a big reporting in Salisbury, which is like the next town over. But other than that, I haven't seen any, it's not like a hotspot. I have no idea.
I don't think that necessarily matters as far as stuff like that goes.
Okay.
I mean, I think when it comes to anything paranormal, I think we're dealing with a variety of things. We're dealing with the earth energy of the place,
Okay.
which is where you get hotspots. You're dealing with the people involved, and you're certainly someone who this stuff is drawn to.
Okay.
And we're also, I think, affected by things like solar activity and other stuff coming in from space that can affect how and what we can perceive or how things can come through to us.
Okay.
Like, I don't know if any of this stuff has an objective existence, like it might and it might not. I'm completely agnostic about that.
Yeah.
But those are all things that factor in. Like when they do psychic tests, they find certain types of psi perform better when we have high solar activity versus low solar activity.
Oh, how interesting. There's so many factors.
Yeah, everything is interconnected. And so then if you go to an area that has rampant earth energy, especially along fault lines and things like that.
Oh, I have a story about that.
Okay. All right. That I definitely want to hear.
Okay.
Again, you're in an area that has a buildup of energy. Any place that emotional things can potentially leave an imprint on certain types of environments.
Okay.
Because it's like the old stone tape theory. But, so there's like numerous factors, so it's hard to narrow one down. So maybe you were out at the right time. You did sort of a little ritual.
We did. We went out intending to see weird stuff.
Right.
We asked for it. We gave permission.
And you seem to be the type of person who can, manifest this stuff.
I mean, I'm really good at getting what I ask for. I just got to be careful and make sure that it's actually good for me. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes. Yeah. It's not wrong to say that you have to be careful what you ask for.
Yeah. Oh man, I just had 3 different stories pop up in my head related to stuff that we're talking about. Okay. I don't want to lose them.
Start wherever you want.
Okay. We've got the energy meridian place because I want to talk about my experience with that.
Okay.
And then that's so dark, but I'm going to tell it to you and the world apparently because it's really weird. I'm going to talk about the being careful about your thoughts. Now, I don't think that my thoughts actually cause these actions, but I'd like to get your perspective on it. And I've been unbelievably careful about my thoughts since then. So maybe it was just like an interesting pattern for my brain to recognize to then teach me a lesson to be careful. So we'll start there. Okay, so the meridian thing, you were talking about certain parts, certain geographical areas, right? Being hot spots and being more sensitive. And I know I've heard about like these like vortexes, right? There's like Sedona, there's like very famous places, right?
Skinwalker Ranch.
That's basically these different meridian lines where they intersect, a bunch of them. So one of the many places that I've lived is Cape Ann in Massachusetts. It's the Cape in the northern part of the state. It's smaller than Cape Cod. It's beautiful up there, Gloucester. And that's where I learned how to blow glass. And I had a winter rental up there one year. Oh, wow. It was amazing. It was on the oceanfront.
Wow.
Facing west somehow on the East Coast because we're on that little peninsula, we're on the Cape.
Okay. Yeah.
It was so beautiful. And we just happened to live there the warmest winter I've ever experienced in New England. So the weather was perfect. And we had friends that kept renting winter rentals on that one street, like year after year. And they'd go find somewhere to be for the summer with their many children just so it's a very touristy, coveted area. So it would be unreasonable for them to like actually find a house to buy on that street. So like this is what they just kept doing because they said the energy there on that street was that magical. So they were like, this is where you have to live if you're renting here. So we did. We found a spot. And I remember Lisa looked at me and she said, you're going to remember this for the rest of your life. This is going to be the most magical place you've ever lived. She wasn't wrong. She was not wrong. So there was like a bluff and then there was like, down to like a rocky beach. And when it was low tide, you could see the ocean floor. It was like it looked like puzzle pieces, like all the rocks kind of pressed into the sand and fit together in these like random organic sort of ways.
Cool.
Except straight down the middle, as far out as you could see, no matter how low the tide got, like it couldn't have been man-made. There was just a straight line, like a one straight line. And if you followed that straight line, it went directly underneath my house and it went directly underneath my bed. Like the master bedroom was in the finished basement. And so it went like directly underneath my bed. I'm somebody who has premonition dreams. I have so many of my messages and everything, comes in dreams. We're just so open there. But when we lived at this house, every single night that I went to sleep, I dreamt about the future, and I dreamt about a span of a few decades, but like crunched down into a mini series, basically, that I returned to every single night in my sleep. And I watched personal events unfold. I watched world events unfold. I watched it was so unbelievably intense and so detailed. And I would wake up. A lot of the way that I receive my messages is through emotion, which is exhausting to feel everything. It's a lot of concepts and emotions that I then have to translate into words. And I'm usually pretty good, about how that gets translated, especially once I realized everything or a lot of things are symbolic, it got the translation easier. But, so I'm watching this unfold, and some of it was kind of scary, but I also was maybe directly interpreting some things that were meant to be symbolic. But it was so detailed and it went on for so long. Every once in a while when we lived there, I'd take a break from that long mini series about this thing way in the future. And I'd just dream about the exact thing that was going to happen the next day. But it would be like to warn my boyfriend to not leave his wallet on the counter or his phone on the counter at the gas station, or to not set the house on fire or something. It would be like to prevent some emergency from happening. Like my brain or my consciousness would take a break from the movie it was playing for me to tell me the emergency thing. And then a few years in the future, I watched that series start to happen. Exactly as it happened in my dreams, I started it to play by play. I never would have moved to Colorado if I hadn't seen it happen in my dreams first. How interesting is that?
So again, when we come to the question of free will, is that because that was already set for you, or did you get that dream so you would move to Colorado? Did you have a choice?
I don't
was it a higher part of yourself like, this is where you need to go and this is the way I'm going to tell you?
It definitely felt like I was being directed, but who was I being directed by? Me, of course, right?
Maybe.
I mean? I don't know, and at the time I was like, why do I have to see this? And it's like, well, okay, maybe I have to see this because that had to happen. Okay, so I've got an interesting story kind of along these lines about why did I need to know this? And some of my experiences, a lot of them are me being psychic, right? And me receiving messages for people and feeling compelled to tell them. But a lot of my experiences are me meeting other psychic people and them being like, oh shit, I have a message for you. Hang on, the phone's ringing. Here, it's for you. And I have that happen so much. And it's happened to me so much that when I was younger, and I did, I talked about this on Tim's too, that I had this therapist when I was younger who was basically just like a Western guru. He was friends with Ram Dass. He went on his pilgrimage to India around the same time. He was incredible. What an incredible resource for me.
Yeah.
Shoot, what was I saying right before that? Help me out here.
You were talking about the move to Colorado being in dreams, and you were talking to your therapist.
I was asking about, so I asked him, I keep getting these messages from people who other people might think are crazy. Do you know what I mean? Am I crazy basically for hearing this message from, sometimes it's from a homeless person. You know what I mean? Sometimes it was from somebody who was obviously mentally ill and unable to take care of themselves. You know what I mean? So, and sometimes it was just from somebody who seemed more sane, but maybe seemed crazier once they start telling you they have messages for you. Right.
Right.
And that kept, and I was like, and this has happened throughout my whole life. And I've remembered it even, this has stuck out for me. Am I nuts basically for remembering this? And he kind of very calmly chuckled at me and he said, Adrienne, you don't get messages from sane people. Hello, and I thought that was really funny.
So what you're saying is people will give you messages, real people will come up to you and just give you messages.
I'm going to give you an example. Okay. Same health food store when I was 19 as the time skipping time, right? Same health food store. This was actually the incident that caused me to lose my job. And I'm going to tell you that it was worth it because I have the story to tell you, honestly, and you'll understand. So I was working in the health and beauty aids department, and that's only relevant because it meant we answered the phones. It was part of my task. So the phone rang, and we had a standard way that we answered the phone. This is relevant to the story. And I answered the phone, A Market Natural Foods. How can I help you? We never said our names. There was no identification that happened. And the man on the phone, he had a thick accent. He was a native Hawaiian. And I was in New Hampshire. I was in Manchester, New Hampshire. And he was looking for some grocery item or product or something. And I didn't work in that department, so I didn't know if we had it. So I said, let me put you on hold and let me check with them. And again, these details are relevant. You'll see,
Yeah.
So I put him on hold, and instead of like dialing the grocery department and getting them on the phone to ask them, and this is relevant because like it wasn't like wires got crossed and he heard someone say my name, basically, right? I just put him on hold and I walked across the store and I went and discussed his request with the grocery department. And then I walked back and I picked the phone back up. He was listening to like some ad about our specials that week. And I come back and I said, I told him what the grocery department said, basically that like, we don't carry that, but here's the name of the manufacturer. They can give you a distributor on the West Coast who can send it to you because that'll be cheaper,
Yeah.
Like, why are you calling New Hampshire, basically?
Right.
And he said, and I don't think that he knew this when he picked up the phone and called us, but I think once he connected with my energy on the phone, because he was open, I think he's just like me and he's just open for it. It came through. So, his response to me was, that's okay, Adrienne. I think I actually called to talk to you. And immediately, I'm 19. He has my attention, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? I'm already having lots of deja vus in my life at this point, And I'm just like, okay, so like, what do you mean? And so he starts to talk to me about stuff that happened when I was little. Not the bad stuff that happened when I was little, but personal stuff that happened inside my head that never was discussed with another human. So things that only me and God know. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like that, very specific things I would think about in my head before going to sleep when I was 3 and 4 years old. That's as personal as you can get,
Yeah.
So I'm like, and I'm on the phone with this man for like an hour, which is why I lost my job, of course. This seemed way more important than a health food store.
Right.
He spends maybe 20 minutes or so talking to me about, if this was like the ghost of Christmas past and present and future, kind of,
Mm-hmm.
He spent like 20 minutes talking to me about things from my past and experiences. And he was explaining a lot of the spiritual experiences that I had had in detail. Like he was like, I know this happened and you didn't understand it. And this happened at this time. And when you were at your dad's, this happened. And like, he was going through it. And then he starts telling me about the really intense stuff that's happening in my life right then. All the spiritual stuff, my mystical experiences that are different than people around me and the things that I don't have elders to explain to me. And he is explaining those things and trying to help me feel safer, about that chaotic energy, basically.
Yeah.
And then he starts telling me about the future. And he said, in the near future, and my 19-year-old brain was like, the near future, that's next week, a month from now, a year from now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have a lot of perspective on near. So he said, in the near future, it's going to seem like your life is falling apart. He said, you're going to be devastated. It's really going to feel like the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And he said, Hawaii will call you and you're going to come here. And it's going to be the medicine that you need. And your life is going to reset. When you get home, you're going to be a different person. You're going to change some major, major things about your life. You're going to discover more of your purpose and you're going to like, welcome to the next chapter, basically. Welcome to your new life. And I was like, dope. That sounds great. So I leave work because I have to go process what I just heard for an hour by this stranger on the phone. So I just walk out and I call my friend and I said, meet me at my house, please, because this is insane. I need to discuss with you what just happened. My best friend at the time. And so she met me at my house and I told her and she was like, wow. And like, I don't know, we were kids. We just discussed it. And then time passed and it didn't happen. A week went by. Whatever he said didn't happen. A month went by. 6 months went by. A year went by. 2, 3, 4 years. And it didn't happen. So it's not like I forgot about it completely, but I forgot about it as in it wasn't accessible, And then in the 5th year, I'm married and I have a baby and I work in an office and I make great money. And my husband starts cheating on me with a teenager that we work with.
Oh.
Yeah. And we all work together.
Oh,
and
even better.
How I make all my money, Like this is 20 years ago. I was making 6 figures. I was a kid. Like this is not a job I wanted to lose. And so I'm sobbing at my desk all day, every day. It's not a good look for me. But I have no control over myself. And I feel devastated and totally gutted. And, he's out until 5 a.m. or whatever, all the time with her. And I'm clenching my teeth so hard during the day and in my sleep that I kill the nerves in my 2 front teeth. Oh. And it's a telephone job. I was doing commercial collections. And so, I can't work because I can't speak. because my top 2 front teeth have had 3 failed root canals and 2 apicoectomies on, and they won't heal because I'm so stressed out still. And so I'm about to lose everything I have, and I don't know what to do. And so my boss pulls me into the office, and he says, I love you. You make me so much money. Like, his bonuses were based off of what I was doing, you know? And he said, you're my top collector. You're the company's top collector. Like, you are phenomenal. Everyone loves you. And we hate them, but we can't just fire them. We're sorry. But we would if we could, you know? And also, I love you as a person. Like, you're an incredible human being. And like, I value you as a human, and you can't do this. You're going to get sick and die. Like, you can't do this. This is really bad for you. So you either need to take a vacation or find a new job. And I was just like, oh, wow. You know, it was a very sobering moment for me.
Yeah.
And I sat in this office and I thought about it. And I thought about my friend, happened to be the same friend I called that day, right? But I wasn't making the correlation yet. And I thought about her, and she was about to go to Hawaii for 5 weeks and then Jamaica for 6 weeks. And I thought about the vacation that I really needed. I think my boss probably thought I was going to go to Vermont for the weekend or something, you know? And so I looked at him and I said, okay, the beginning of March, I said, hold my job. I'll be back in 30 days. He said, 30 days? Where are you going? I said, I'm going to Hawaii. And he was like, wow. You know? I had never left my kid for more than like an overnight before. She went with my mom. It was fine. But like, it was just very out of character for me, you know?
Right.
And I got FMLA for my teeth, which is nuts.
I don't know what that is. Family
Medical Leave Act. You get it when you have a baby.
Oh, okay.
You know? Yeah. And I was such a good collector that I had payments. I made all my regular money that month just because the payments came in. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't even lose money. It was wild. So I only went to Hawaii for 10 days. I just didn't want to go back to the office. So I leave and I get out to my car and I call her and I was like, I'm coming to Hawaii with you. And she was like, how? I was like, because I said so. I'm finally in charge. You know, like, I'm in charge of my life now. This is what's happening. She was like, well, good for you. She was like, come over, we'll buy tickets. I said, okay. She hadn't bought her airline ticket yet. And so we go and we get killer deals, $600 round trip, whatever, like a week in advance. It was nuts. Yeah, it was crazy. And great seats, perfect layover. It was ideal. And so we get there. She used to live there. So we just did a lot of like hitchhiking, which is not only legal there, but very safe there. Like, it's a very different lifestyle.
Yeah.
And they like to keep as many cars off the road as possible. So they're into it, you know? So we were camping in people's yards that she knew and like making our own food. You know, I spent $300 total in the 10 days I was there. Like, that's the cheapest Hawaii trip I can even imagine. And so we're there and we're doing our thing and we sleep in the tent the first night and we wake up. And I don't know if you've been to Hawaii, but it's volcanic. So everything is like this, like mountain. So if you're not down on the beach and you're anywhere up, which is the rest of everything, when you look out at the ocean, it looks like it's going up around you everywhere. It's the weirdest thing. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. So we wake up and we're sitting there and it's just dripping with food. We grab a papaya, we cut it open with a pocket knife, we scoop the seeds out, we're squeezing a lime into it, we're eating it, you know, it's dripping down. We're looking out and she looks at me and she grabs my arm and she shows me her arm and all of her hairs are standing out and she's covered in goosebumps. Tears are streaming down her face. And I'm like, what? And she was like, the guy on the phone at A-Market, the Hawaii guy, everything he said is exactly what happened. I went home, I got divorced, my life was different. I went and I took a bunch of energy healing classes. I realized, you know, exactly what he said happened. Huh. Yeah. And I've had tons of stuff like that happen. You know what I mean? But it's like, that one was wild. It happened 5 years later. It was so delayed in my mind that I had forgotten that he even existed. Mm-hmm.
We got to take a quick break. When we come back, I have some thoughts about that.
Okay.
Mid-show break here. Contact info and a recommendation. Contact info is pretty simple. WhereDidTheRoadGo.com. You can find everything there. There's a link tree that will take you to all of my other stuff as well. So you can check out The Last Exit for the Lost if you like heavy and dark music, especially independent stuff. You can find my photography. You can find all my social media. And on WhereDidTheRoadGo.com is all the social media for WhereDidTheRoadGo.com, for Where Did the Road Go? Too many .coms there. So yeah, that's where you go. And there's a big Patreon link. You can become a Patreon. It's only $3 a month. I started in 2015. It's always been $3 a month. You get extra content with every show. And in this show in particular, there's a very long extra segment. The same with next week's show, actually. They may be longer than the main show, but that happens sometimes. Along with that, you get the shows a couple weeks early, you get them commercial free, and you get extra bonus stuff in between as well. All right, as for a recommendation, I'm going to go with one you should already know about, and that is The 6 Degrees of John Keel, because Barbara has started doing those again. So if you have never listened to it, go check out her stuff. Barbara's awesome. I mean, she's awesome every time she comes on this show, but she put her show on hiatus for a little bit, and she's back. So if you haven't checked it out, there's some new episodes up. 6 Degrees of John Keel. That's a podcast for anyone who may have missed that part. All right, back to this show. And I'm back here on Where Did the Road Go with Adrienne. And, okay, that last story you told was awesome.
Okay, nice.
And earlier you were talking about something that reminded me of Jeremy Vaney's story about how a talking dolphin made him move to Hawaii. But I think that was a vision he had, or a dream. I can't remember it. It's killing me. But that's how he ended up in Hawaii.
Okay.
Because he was living in New York City at the time and had no intention of moving to Hawaii. But two, how do you know the person on the phone was a person?
I don't.
Because I feel like that's
Why would he have called a health food store in New Hampshire? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So you're right. Like, I don't know.
Did anyone else talk to him?
No, because when I came back, like when I hung up the phone with him before I left for work that day, like I asked everybody if they had picked up the phone and talked to him because I wanted to know if he got my name from somebody somehow. And nobody had. Nobody picked up the phone.
And I wonder if anyone else had picked up the phone, if he would have been there.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Like, you could have had an experience with this being, whatever it was, part of yourself, some external other was talking to you, and it just seemed like it was talking through the phone. Yeah,
you're correct. You're totally 100% correct. I have no way of knowing.
And it reminds me so much of John Dies at the End. The main character is talking to his friend who he thinks is dead, and he's talking to him on a cell phone, and he goes, well, look at your cell phone. It's broken. He looks at it, he goes, how am I talking to you? He's like, well, pick up this hot dog. And he puts the hot dog up to his head. He's like, see, I'm not talking to you through the device. You just think I am.
Yeah, I have no idea.
And it seems like that was information you needed to know to be in the right place. Like, even if you may have forgotten, that information was still in your head.
It was in there. It was implanted, obviously. Because I was like, oh, I'll just go to Hawaii. I know. Like, that's so out of character for me, you know? Yeah. And it was exactly what I needed, you know? Like, going to Hawaii is like taking 100 milligrams of Prozac every day. You know? Like, there's no way you can't feel good in Hawaii. Like, yeah, the sunshine. It just smells like perfumed flowers. I've never seen anything like it. It's the most beautiful place.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was incredible. And the trip was exactly what he said it would be. No, but you're right. I have no idea.
So that's interesting.
I don't have a witness to that one.
Yeah.
I have witnesses to some of my stuff, but not that one.
Yeah, I mean, same here. I mean, I have witnesses to some of the really weird stuff that's happened to me, but not all of them. And and internal reality, external reality, is there really a difference?
Well, I mean, the whole evolutionary game theory talks about how consciousness is fundamental. So, So no, if consciousness is fundamental, there is no difference because the external is created from the consciousness.
I've had at least 2 experiences where I was with 3 people. One other person experienced what I was, and the other person was not. And these were very distinct experiences. These were not like minor little things. Like, there's no way someone could have missed them, but yet the person was like, I don't know what you're talking about. So are they blocking it out, or is it not meant for them? Or, I mean...
Yeah, I used to wake up in the middle of the night when we lived in this one house that was definitely haunted, but not in a way that scared me, and there'd be orbs of light bouncing in and out of reality right below the ceiling above where I was sleeping. And if I'm blind, I need glasses. I'm not blind, but I'm just very, very, nearsighted. I can't see very much at all. So if I grabbed my glasses or if I squinted and I tried to look at these orbs of different colored light bouncing in and out of reality below the ceiling, they'd kind of disappear. But if I just kind of relaxed and let it come to me, then they would stay. I could it was like an energetic thing. I could almost play with it. And I remember I'd wake up my husband at the time and he couldn't see him, but I don't have a third person witnessing it there that could see it with me.
Right.
Right. I definitely had plenty of things that would happen like that. And he wasn't a seer. He wasn't an experiencer. So the entire time I was with him, I would experience things and he wouldn't. I wouldn't have a witness, Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think most of the time, if I've had a weird experience and someone else is there, they see it. And
most of the time for me too, but not with him, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think, someone else had told me that too, where their spouse never saw anything. I can't remember who it was.
Yeah, he's not an experiencer, but his belief system is very different than mine. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
And if we really are co-creating reality, and like if all of consciousness is really the same thing and we're all different pieces of that, and consciousness is fundamental and we're all co-creating this, together, then our belief system would affect what we together and individually are able to see.
Yes. Yeah. I would agree with that. But I also think there's things about perception. We just did a 2-part on the Invisible Gorilla book. And have you ever read that?
No, but I know the video. I've been subject to the experiment.
Okay. Do you remember if you saw the gorilla the first time?
I did not see it the first time. No.
I can't remember if I did or not.
Because I'm usually pretty observant,
Yeah. But that's the thing. That's the point. What they're pointing out is that there's the illusion of focus and attention that we don't realize we're doing. And the same with like the Twitter dress thing from years ago that was annoying people because it was so viral. But to me, it was fascinating because you'd look at
the gold and the blue thing.
Yeah. Because 2 people could look at the same exact image and get a different color pattern. And like people are like, I'm tired of hearing about this. And I'm like, well, it's not an optical illusion. That's the thing. Like it's messing. It's something about the way we see.
It's perception. And you know what's funny? When I looked at it, I was like, well, I know that is a gold and I know that the dress itself is got to be gold and white, but I can tell that the way that like the lighting and the shadows are, it looks blue.
Yeah.
Like for me, I saw both aspects at the same time. You know?
I saw one, and then at some point my brain switched to the other one, and I couldn't see the first one again. And I'm like, oh, that's really fascinating.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've seen other photos where that's happened to me, where it's like the plates are all flipped one way until you see the one that's not, and then they're all flipped the other way.
Yes.
And I've had that happen before. Yeah.
But we don't all see reality the same way. We don't all observe the same things about reality. We're not getting 100% of what our senses are filters. Our brain is a filter. It goes, this stuff isn't important. You don't need that.
My dad calls the senses portals, which I think is interesting.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you mentioned that earlier from the other guy too, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, my dad was, or maybe was the therapist too, was Rich calling them that? Possibly. Yeah. I just had a conversation with my dad about it when we were talking about the time skipping thing. That time skipping thing my dad also experienced when he was around the same age, which is like fascinating.
Yeah.
And we were discussing like, well, what is time then? And he gave me this really cool analogy, and I wish I could say it the right way because I don't remember what animal or what color was the example that he gave. But he was like, well, when you look at the sky on like a cloudless day, what color is it? I was like, well, blue. And he was like, well, like when a chameleon looks at the sky, what color is it? And like the answer wasn't blue,
right,
it was like some other color. And I was like, okay. And he was like, so who's right and who's wrong?
Yeah,
and I was
neither.
Like, okay. And he was like, all your senses are just portals and they have certain lenses on them.
That is exactly it. And the way our brain sorts information is different. Like a friend of mine's a carpenter. He can look at a stairway and be like, oh, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. That's a structural problem. I look at it and go, what now? Looks like stairs,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or if you do film stuff, you notice little things that your average viewer isn't going to notice because you know how it's put together.
Everybody does view everything through their own lens.
Yeah.
So part of my spiritual lesson has been like to drop the ego and have a lot of humility. So I've been faced with, and I think that's just everybody's, but I've extra been faced with a lot of validation, or I guess validation, because that's what I was thinking initially early on when having my experiences, but just like sort of like this message from outside people that I'm special. And I'm not. I mean, I'm not any more special than anybody else is, right?
Yes.
But like, because I have all these experiences the whole time, there's been just so much of that, like just like excessively. And shoot, what were you saying right before that? I'm trying to remember why I brought that up. I was using that as an example of something.
It's perceptions and what we filter out.
Oh, people seeing things through their own lenses.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's so interesting to me because I'm somebody who's comfortable talking about how open I am and like all the, there's a perfect storm of reasons why I have these experiences. But because I'm so comfortable about that, I have a lot of these discussions. And so people will have their own spiritual and consciousness and reality beliefs. And whatever I tell them gets sorted into what they already believe. And so my friend who's Indian, he's Hindu, and he is a firm believer, or was for a long time, that I am a reincarnated Naga. I'm just a person. I'm not. You know what I mean? But like that's his interpretation. I had another friend who was like really, really Christian, and he was sure that I was didn't even believe in reincarnation until we had some experiences together. But then he was sure that I was Daniel reincarnated from the Bible. I'm totally not. Like, do you know what I mean? But it's like, I was like, wow, everybody really is just seeing everything from their own like viewpoint. You know what I mean? I'm like, people see me as something special, but it's whatever that special means to them, whatever that categorization is for what they've been taught, you know?
I mean, it's basically either everyone's special or no one's special. It kind of means the same thing.
Yeah, it has to be that way. And I struggled with that cognitive dissonance my whole life because I'm like, well, but I'm having these experiences.
Yeah.
So like, I must be special because other people aren't having these experiences. I also, first of all, didn't understand how many other people were actually having these experiences.
Yeah.
Because we're stigmatized against talking about them.
Yep.
But also, we just live in such a narcissistic society. All of us have narcissistic thoughts and we're all self-centered because that's the way that that's just our society. That's civilization. Like, that's what we're doing. And so the way that we think about things happens in those terms. And so there's so many levels of dropping ego to process what you're experiencing. I didn't realize how many layers there were to that. And the more you drop that, the more truth you find in your interpretations, which is really beautiful, right? It really holds you back from finding the answers that you're seeking. But also like when you're able to remove that, like the clarity that you have, like it's just really interesting. The clarity that you have that you're able to like, my ADHD got the best of me. What were we talking about right before that? I took my meds too. It's late night. I apologize.
We were talking about perception and being special.
Oh, it's just been bombarded. So this cognitive dissonance of like, okay, well, I know I'm not special, but everybody tells me I am special and I'm having all these experiences and I'm getting these messages. And like my flying dream experience, I was convinced that I was supposed to help everybody for most of my life because of the way that I interpreted those dreams. And if I told you the details of these dreams, you would see how any person that grew up in our culture would interpret it that way. And the funniest part of that is that it was telling me the exact opposite. The symbolic message was literally like, don't try to teach anybody anything about this. Like, that's where we get into trouble. Like that was the message. But because we live in this culture, I interpret it in this completely other way. So even as a kid, this cognitive dissonance of, wow, this feels really special, but like, no, I know I'm not special. I know I'm not.
Yeah.
And I straddled this rather than having one foot in one camp and one foot in the other. I went back and forth over that line my whole life. No, I'm nothing. No, I'm everything. No, I'm nothing. No, I'm everything. And then I was like, oh, no. It's yes. It's yes. And the answer is both.
Yes.
And the answer is both. And the best way that I've been able to explain my interpretation of that is that I'm only special because I'm everything. And so are you.
That's fair.
Like this thing that we're in, this thing that we're all a part of is so much more special than we're led to believe. And we just get to be a part of it. Like, so yes, I'm special in that way, but I'm not special as separate from it because I'm not separate from it.
Exactly. We're all interconnected.
Yep.
What was the thing you just said that struck me? Oh, so throughout my experiences, what I would be told is that, basically the idea that you're chosen. And I'm like, okay, but also they would add on, but you're replaceable.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so I'm not special, but you're giving me something. And if I choose not to do this, you'll just replace me with someone else. Like, it's not me.
Well, that's just special for control. That's not special for special.
But it's humbling. It's like, so I never got that, oh, I'm special. It's like, no, you were chosen for us to give you this information, wherever it's coming from.
Yeah.
But it's, there's nothing about you that is necessarily special. You're just open to it, and we can replace you with someone else and give someone else this information.
When you say we, what kind of culture are you talking about that raised you? Like,
I was not raised in any religious aspects.
Okay. So who is it?
I don't know.
Okay.
Like, a lot of information's imparted to me through dreams.
Okay, you just mean coming from the ether. I understand.
Yeah, I kind of.
So that was the mystical message that you were getting. Like, you're special, but like behave.
Right.
We'll disappear.
And like I said, some of it's dream stuff. I mean, my name was given to me like very loudly in the back of a car after a concert.
I love that.
Spoken into my head after a whole series of stuff that I now recognize. There's a lot of resemblance to a shamanic initiation.
Okay. Okay.
So like, and I've heard like literal voices talking to me. There are voices in my house. People have, back when we were still using landlines, I'd put the phone down, walk away, and I'd pick up the phone. The person would be like, "Who was that?" And I'd be like, "What do you mean, who was that? I'm the only one here." And someone would have
So
picked
are these voices familiar to you?
They're familiar to me in the sense that they're the same voice usually.
Okay, but not familiar to you from like outside of this place.
No.
Okay. When I hear voices, if it's not a voice that I recognize as like my own voice, or like somebody, my mom calling my name or something, they're usually voices that are so familiar to me that they're more familiar than anybody that I know in this time-space reality.
That is a really good way of putting it.
Mm-hmm.
Which, makes me think of the whole animus stuff with Jung, but...
Oh, I love Jung.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, I don't know if that's it, Like, I learned that concept, and I was like, well, maybe, but I don't know.
I enjoy the lens with which he views things. And, like, I didn't really study him until recently. But I can't say that I wasn't influenced by him because like everything is influenced by him, But I was just really interesting when I really started like learning about, the way that his brain works and his teachings. And I was like, oh, well, this is what makes sense to me too. That's cool. I like it,
And the fact that he had a daemon that he talked to.
Yeah, that's something I'd like to talk to you about at some point.
But I was just going to say something else about all this. What was it? Well, you also had said there were like 3 other stories that.
Okay, so yeah, I've got another one.
Okay.
This, I don't date anymore, but when I did, this is one that I like to scare like dating app dates with. And I don't know, I had some interesting connections based on how people reacted to this story.
Okay.
So I'm just going to give it to you straight. It sounds crude the way it is. And you have to understand before I tell you the story, I want you to know how much I love cats.
Okay.
Like we have 8 cats at my house. We're very clean.
Awesome.
That sounds like a lot of cats, right? 2 are mine, 6 are my roommates. We are cat people. He's a cat rescue guy. I'm looking right now at a wall, like covered in photos and art and pictures of cats. Like I love cats. Okay. I would never harm a cat on purpose. Okay. So, but I'm going to tell you the story about how I killed 2 cats with my mind by accident, right? Like, so it's weird. I don't really think I did that. But then when I tell the story, you're like, oh, well, I don't think you did that, but maybe you did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's one of those. So I'm living in Denver a few years ago, and have like a work trade situation. The woman that I lived with traveled for more than 50% of the year, and she had like a big fancy property that needed somebody to live there and take care of it. There was like a heated pool and goldfish ponds and lots of animals, and you had to, a lot of maintenance. So I just stayed at her house while she was gone most of the time, and she had these 2 cats. And one of them was older, and he was one of those like expensive skinny kitties with not a lot of hair. Like he was like Cornish Rex.
Yeah. He
was old. He was really sweet. Name was Omar. He was older. He was on his way out, and he, thankfully, this is a little gross. Thankfully, it didn't smell very much, but he would spray, and he would like come in my room, and like I'd have to strip my bed. He'd spray stuff, and it was gross, but I keep him out of my room. My cat needed access, and etc. I was very annoyed, and it was gross, and I had to clean all the time because of this cat, and I was just like really not happy about it.
Yeah,
and she had this other cat who was younger, but he went outside sometimes because he had been a feral cat originally. His name was Blevins. He was a sweetie, and he didn't pee anywhere else. I don't know why this cat did this. I had an SUV. He'd get on top of my Xterra, and he would pee into the door jamb on the driver's side.
Oh, jeez.
And both these, and I'm a caretaker here. I'm living in a very fancy, beautiful home, like for nothing in Denver with a heated pool and a hot tub and a glass blowing studio for me. And like, I don't want to move, but these cats, like I can't, and I'm so upset about it. And so I said out loud or in my head, I think I just thought it. I just thought, oh, the only way this is going to stop is if they die.
Right.
And I immediately was like, no, don't think that. No, I take it back. I don't want that. I normally wouldn't even think that thought was I wouldn't think that thought would do anything. I wouldn't normally have the retraction after of the thought. You know what I mean? Like, it was so weird. I was like, no. So within a few days, both cats died.
Oh, man.
But the detail on what happened is kind of crazy. So the one cat dies. I don't remember which one died first. They died different ways, 2 days apart, out of nowhere. So one of these cats just keeled over and died because he was old.
Okay.
The other one we think ate like a rodent that it had poison or something, right? So separate things happened. And I don't know which one happened first. One happened, and then that night I had a dream. And in my dream, I had eaten chicken wings that day. Relevant. And in my dream, I am not a human. I am some dragony serpenty thing in my dream. And there's a kitten in front of me. And I take my talons, my claws,
Yeah.
and I grabbed the kitten's face like it was like chicken skin, and I pulled its skin off of his face, and I went to eat it, and it tasted like cat fur. You know what I mean? It was gross.
Yeah.
But as I put it in my mouth, and it's disgusting, because why would I ever eat a cat face? I start to morph back into being human. And this skeletal kitten face is looking at me like, why would you do that? And I'm horrified because I no longer am a dragony serpent thing that wants to eat this cat's face. And this is just a metaphor for like what happened in my brain. Like, oh, no, I didn't mean it. It's literally a metaphor for what happened in my brain. And I am like, oh no. And then the other cat died the next day.
Wow.
And so I was talking to my boyfriend about it at the time because I was freaking out. And of course he just teased me. He said, well, I see why you like cats so much. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, tasty snacks. Just teasing me. So I don't really think that I did because that's absurd. But because I have lots of thoughts all the time and none of my other thoughts do anything like that. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm not dumb. But like for that to go down the way that it did, it was such a poignant lesson. And it made me really, 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 really extra conscious about my thoughts, even though I don't really think that's what happened there,
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense, actually.
Because
you have
I use it as a tool and like it's a good story and I'm really careful about what I think about.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where correlation doesn't always equal causation, but sometimes it does. And how do we know with something like that?
Yeah, it's pretty specific, huh? I don't want to give too many details about the flying dreams thing, but I would like to touch on it in case any of your listeners were there, because they could have been. I usually make other people tell me first, but I'm just interested to see if anybody else was there. So I'll give a little bit. So
okay, you got to do it quick because we're almost out of time.
Okay, no problem. When I was little, I had these flying dreams, and I was with other kids, and they started in these big, big circus tents. And we would like Mario style or Princess Peach style, we'd have to run and jump to catch air, like super moon jumps, like there was less gravity or something to practice. And eventually some of us got better at it and graduated like to other levels of flying. And some of us graduated completely and then did stuff with it. And I have actually met a few people in real life who were there. So I'm always looking for others.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We'll talk a little bit more about that on the Patreon.
Okay.
But you do glass blowing.
I do.
And where can people find your stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. They can find me on Instagram at Glass Happy. Really easy to remember. And I just last year started incorporating some of my magical practices with my glass as well. So I do some jar spell, amulet type stuff. But it's mostly just art.
Okay. Is there anything else that you do that people can look at online?
That is all I have up for now. I do offer some tarot readings sometimes. I post there when those are offered, when I have time and energy for that.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll continue talking on a Patreon, but thank you for coming on tonight.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
I want to take a moment here to thank all of my Patreons. Because of you, this show still survives. And it is because of you that I intend to keep going with it. So I want to give a special shout out to those of you who are pledging $10 or more. Greg Ross, Cherry Trapezoid, Tactical Therapist, John Blackburn, Matt in Delaware, Mark Smith, Madeline J., Marty Garza, Gantic, Allison Cook, Super Inframan, 36 Dingo, Trin, Giotto, Sean Cosgrove, Tim, Matthew Sproul, Ruth Fortescue, Andrew Nichols, Martha, Tyler Glimstead, Christine, Mothman Bren, Mark Brady, D. Esme, Patricia Gaia-Quinta, Kevin Schreck, Linz Jackson K, Charles in Florida, Land of the Crazy and Communicable, Charles Davis, Kristen L, Automaton, Riker and Stark, Abby Allen, Bright Rectangle, Eric Citron, Kevin, American Rambler, Sam Sharon, Tyler Bell, Thunderboy, Eric Todd, Ann Witowski, Vincent Trewell, Will Powell, Barbara Fisher, Schmooples, Devourer of Mortal Souls, Jay, MTK, History and Coffee, Diane B, Beverly Williamson, Jim and Sophie, Andrew Maines, Jonathan Frost, Victoria, John Bracken, Paul Jeffries, Janet's Planet, Ron Dupre, Laser Printer Jam, Perry Peters, Varosh K, MJ Armstrong, Jack Huntington, Laura McLean, Stacy Sherwood, James Lindsay, Linda from Michigan, Billuminati, Strange Stories with the Seeker and Skeptic podcast, Mark Shoemaker, Ron Dupre, Will Cherry, Seed Person, The Ghost Story Guys, Liam Huddick, Harold, Annabelle Smith, Caroline Walker, TDT Skunkworks, Craig Sagastumi, Colin Karras, and Matthew Brown. Thank you all so very, very much for the support. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. Adrienne will definitely be back in the future. But there's a long Patreon with her as well. So if you're a Patreon, you'll be able to check that out. And you can become a Patreon for just $3 by clicking on the big Patreon link at weirdtodtheroadgo.com. And I don't know why I said but there you go, weirdtodtheroadgo.com. And yeah, it's only $3 a month. You get extra content. You get with almost every show. You get shows a couple weeks early and commercial free, and extra bonus stuff on top of that, all for just $3 a month. I think that's a pretty good deal, and I have kept it at $3 a month since day one. All right. I do want to welcome a couple of new patrons. My old friend Stephen Blackart, whose music has been featured at the end of the show many times over the years, and Clint Smith. Welcome to both of you. I'll see you next time. You have been listening to Where Did the Road Go? This show is brought to you in part by our Patreons. You can find more at www.wheredidtheroadgo.com. Website designed by John Tudor. The intro for the show was reimagined by Andrew Ham, a.k.a. Lord Happis on Spotify. And the voice is Psyche Kamir of Psyche Corporation. Artwork for the show designed by Timothy Renner, Jeff Ritzman, and Nadim Mahibahi. General inquiries, comments, etc. can be directed to contact at wheredidtheroadgo.com. Thank you all for listening and for all the support. www.wheredidtheroadgo.com.